What is going on, and welcome to another episode of the Time Killers podcast. My name is Neil Rivera, and I'm killing time with something rarer than a god pull in your favorite trading card game. It's a millennial homeowner. It's Matthew Field.
Wow, what an intro. Wow.
I had to give you your props, give you your flowers. Congratulations on buying and moving into your first home. How does it feel being a rarity these days?
It definitely does feel like a rarity. I feel, very, very privileged and thankful to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're glad that you're back. We took some time off after our Game of the Year Top 10 extravaganza to let Matthew get settled into his new digs, but we're back. And we've got a great show lined up for you. We're going to go through our 2026 gaming predictions. We're going to look in our crystal balls, tell you our top, most anticipated games. And then we're going to recap some of the winter movies that released and that we watched over the break and give you our thoughts on those. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys that you guys can be part of the show. We want you to be part of the show. Go to timekillerspod.com/AMA, drop in your questions, your comments, be part of the show. And the ones that we think are the most thoughtful and, relevant to the show, we'll read out and we'll start to get some community engagement going. But with that being said, Matthew, let's talk about video games because it's been far too long since I've talked with you about video games. 2026, turns out there's video games coming out.
It's still happening.
We're going to play. It's still happening. Big news, I know. So let's, kind of in a little bit more of an informal sort of format than what we did for our top 10s. Let's kind of just go round robin and talk about what are the games that we're most excited to play this year, big, small, anything in between. So I'll start with you. What's caught your eye this year?
I will go with the most recently announced one first. That's sort of on the top of my list, and that is Ontos, which was announced at the Game Awards. Okay. It's the new game from Frictional, who have done Amnesia. They did Soma, and they actually build this as a spiritual successor to Soma. I think Soma is one of my favorite video game stories of all time, and I think this game is they're moving beyond what the sort of Amnesia formula where walking simulator plus enemies you have to run away or hide from.
Yeah, it's not bespoke action horror where you're fighting these guys. It is more you're running away, you're sticking to shadows. I think comparing it to walking simulator is pretty accurate.
Yes, and so in one of the first interviews they gave about this game, they said that this is not exactly a horror game in a traditional sense. They don't think that you're going to be chased all the time by or they say that you're not going to be chased all the time by monsters like their past games. I don't think they said that there won't be any of that, but they did say that this is more of a psychological horror in nature, which I'm very excited about. I think Soma specifically, the action horror sequences maybe felt a little tacked on. What they really wanted to tell was a compelling story and build the setting, mm-hmm. and they kind of had to find a way to make the gameplay work with what they knew. So I'm very excited to see how they have found to implement new sort of gameplay mechanics and what they're cooking up here. Because I'm a big fan of their work.
No one really does horror quite like them. They're kind of one of the more underappreciated horror game developers out there. Because I played Somos Soma. Oh God, Soma. I'm totally blanking. Yeah, Soma. Thank you. I played Soma. I guess I was trying to combine Soma and Ontos there. But I played Soma, and they really have a great sense of atmosphere, and they're uniquely scary in a way. So I think that's a good pull.
Yep. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
I am going to go something from a developer that I traditionally have enjoyed, but I did not play their last game, but I'm very much looking forward to the sequel, and that is Sorrows from Housemarque and PlayStation.
Interesting.
Obviously the Returnal, kind of it what it did essentially was sort of AAA eyes in a way, the sort of what has become the popular roguelike formula. But I think one of its sort of major detractions was like the sort of grueling difficulty, and that, based on everything I'm seeing from Soros in the lead up, in what Sony's released, is that they're really trying to address that difficulty. And what I keep coming away with is that it's ultimately just all of the sort of the flash and the really the great looking action, with hopefully some of the accessibility tweaks that'll make it approachable for somebody like me who enjoys action games but was a little turned off from the difficulty. Plus, you got Rahul Kohli in the lead role, so I think this is one that, Returnal was one of those that like people either loved or they hated, but the people who loved it really, really like had it ranked highly on their list. So I feel like if they're able to solve some of those difficulty issues for me, I think it could have the potential to be like a Hades like experience for me.
I'm with you there. This is one I've definitely got my eye on. I'm considering actually going back to play some Returnal prior to this Sorrows coming out. I think they did add a patch that kind of smoothed over some of the difficulty stuff that people didn't like, and that was ultimately what kept me from playing it when it came out. So yeah, I may try and check that out prior to Sorrows coming out.
Yeah, same. I think I might want to check it out, but yeah, like I dabbled with it for, nowhere near as long as I probably should have given it, like an hour or two. But yeah, it might be something I pick up and run around with, maybe the PC version, just to see how it looks on the ultra wide.
Yeah.
What else are you excited for, Matthew?
My next most anticipated one, and I'm going out on a small limb here because this is not a confirmed for 2026 game, but I guess we can call this one of my predictions that this game will come out this year.
All right, let's do it.
That is Ken Levine's Judas.
Yeah, this is one that I'm excited for too, but it's been a little while since we've heard anything about it.
Well, they started doing some slow info drops, like in the second half of last year. Like we actually got some new gameplay clips, and Ken Levine gave a couple of interviews talking about, some of the NPCs that you'll meet and how you are going to, choose sides essentially. Like you have 3 people that you can kind of take quests from, I guess, like sort of faction like, and siding with them or against them.
Interesting.
Will like open up new gameplay ways of playing or enemies you have to face, stuff like that. So the way it's kind of blending like immersive and emergent gameplay into narrative, I think sounds interesting.
Yeah.
And look, I know like the BioShock games were huge at the time, and I know the public perception of them has really soured, at least on from BioShock Infinite since in the years since release, and I get that, but I think it is still notable what Ken Levine is trying to do here, in terms of evolving and trying something different with narrative, at a scale like, where he has a significant budget to work with. He has enough clout to be able to get funding to do something that is both adventurous and moderately large budget. So it's definitely one that I think will come out this year, and I'm very much looking forward to checking out.
Yeah, I think I think I would probably have it on like an anticipated list if I knew for sure. Like it is one that, and hearing that they're starting to drip feed some updates has me feeling pretty confident now, or at least a little more confident now. I totally agree with what you said about the BioShock games, where like it does seem like the sort of public perception of them has soured over the years, but I think now more than ever there's plenty of room for some really good heavy-handed storytelling, because like I think subtlety is only going to get you so far, and once like you said, like there's just I am really interested in like blending the sort of immersive sim elements from a BioShock with more of a narrative, more choice. I mean, BioShock at the time, like when it first came out, was sort of revolutionary, or like it's the way that it handled its choices with the little sisters, and like how it was sort of a progressive buildup over time instead of these sort of binary choices. That was something that really stood out to me. So, seeing that there's a continued evolution in Judas, yeah, I'm super excited for it too. I hope it does come out this year because it'll be, I definitely will play it.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm gonna maybe steal one from you, but it's one that I like. The reveal trailer for it was just so good, and given just the tear that this studio has been on lately, like it's hard not to be excited for. And that's Control Resonant, which
Yeah.
sounds weird for me to say because I haven't played much of the original Control, but I loved both Alan Wake 1 and ended up loving Alan Wake 2 when I played it. So this is one that like I fully intend to go back and play the original Control. I love the fact that it's a new protagonist. I love that it's, they are explicitly coming out and saying that it's an action RPG. So they're really evolving, it seems like, the gameplay beyond just a third person shooter game, which was kind of one of my nitpicks about Control from what limited time I've played about, with it. So yeah, I mean, I just want more time in the Remedy verse, and the fact that it is an action RPG and like seems to kind of speak to my tastes in games. It's got me like it was easily one of my most anticipated coming out of the Game Awards. So yeah, definitely looking forward to playing this one.
Yeah, I did not see the genre change coming, but it's
Yeah,
honestly a brilliant move. I mean, you have a franchise that people want more of, but you also want to kind of expand your area of impact and your potential, market for the people who are going to play your game. And yeah, I mean, it looks the way that the trailer did such a good job of making the transition to this genre look extremely natural. Um,
yeah, and obvious too, because I mean, I think it's another thing too. A lot of the trailers, especially the ones at the Game Awards, can be very cinematic and focus more on like story and world building. That a lot of those smaller details can get lost in the sauce. But it was very apparent that like, no, this is a completely different like style of game from the original Control.
yes, but with all of the same kind of like visual and stylistic trappings that people love Remedy for. So
Yeah,
yeah, I agree. This one's high up on my list as well.
yeah, can't wait. That's gonna be awesome.
You want to do one more each?
Yeah, let's do it. I've
Okay.
got a little bit of a cop out, but I can smush my last two into
Okay.
one.
Okay. My last one, I will go ahead and say, it is Blood of Dawnwalker,
Okay.
by Rebel Wolves. This is a game. They've been talking about it. Or, sorry, it's The Blood of Dawnwalker. I don't know why it's not The Dawnwalker, but yeah, The Blood of Dawnwalker by Rebel Wolves. It is a studio that I believe was founded by some people who worked on some of the Witcher games. If you look at this, any of the screenshots from this, you get major Witcher vibes. Like they're not trying to hide
Yeah.
it here.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's they've been teasing this. They've been dropping trailers for it for years now. And I think 2026 is finally when we're going to see the light of day. But the idea is that, as you're a human during the daytime, and at night you're a vampire, and the differences in like you can handle quests different ways based on whether you tried to tackle them during the day or at night. And different options are available to you both by skill set and which NPCs or enemies are at particular areas at any time of day. So it looks like there's just going to be a lot of choice and freedom to explore things. I think that was
Yeah.
one reason why I think Witcher 2 is probably better than Witcher 3 was simply the way that game branched narratively based on the choices that you made.
Yeah, Witcher 3 was a little bit more of a narratively linear
It
game,
was. I mean,
despite how open and big it
yeah. I
was.
mean, for sure there were still some big decisions you made, but in terms of actual gameplay implications for the choices you made, there's just Witcher 2. I mean, the entire second act of that game was different depending on choices you made in the first act. So,
Yeah.
and I think it seems to me like Blood of Dawnwalker is pursuing more of that type of choice, um, instead of like expanding outwards to like an even bigger and huger world. We'll have to see if that ends up coming to fruition, but I think everything they've shown of this so far just looks fantastic. It looks different, but not totally out there. And yeah, I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, it's the debut title from Rebel Wolves. It looks like, yeah, some ex CD Projekt is like the director of The Witcher 3, so definitely got that Witcher pedigree. And yeah, I mean, it's another game that's set in medieval era Europe. Like that seems to be the hot location in games between like this and Kingdom Come Deliverance. There's quite a bit of medieval Europe representation in games these days. But yeah, I mean, like I'm excited for the more Witcher like experiences, and this seems to be one of those. So yeah, I'm excited for this one too. My next one is a little bit of a cop out. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna slip in an early access representative here, and I'm gonna say Paralives, which if you don't know or haven't heard of it, this is essentially the Sims spiritual successor that I am like hanging my hat on. Last year we got the release of Inzoi, which was the Krafton published sort of Sims competitor. It didn't quite hit, or hasn't quite hit in the way that people wanted that one to. So this is like the next big one, which this one has a little bit more of an indie type feel to it. It's got like a really nice, unique, striking art style. Still very much the Sims sort of like centric, management gameplay that you expect, but it just seems to be more of like an evolution in terms of like art and storytelling focus, instead of trying to sell me endless content packs, which is what the Sims 4 essentially is these days. But really why I wanted to mention that was because I am pushing into like the early access and indie game sphere a lot more, because I've been playing a lot on my PC, and really I think the I guess the hard release that I'm looking forward to the most in 2026, hardware, software, otherwise, are just the Steam machines, period. I'm interested to see Valve make a concerted push in the hardware space. So yeah, and this is kind of like we're gonna pivot now into sort of like other things that we're looking forward to. Like one thing we haven't talked about, Matthew, is GTA 6. That's a huge game that's coming out this year. I imagine it's one that you're excited about, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could say this is perhaps on track to be the largest video game of all time, both in terms of sales and money invested in making it. So, yeah, I think it's extremely notable. I'm obviously very excited to play it. I think this is just like a cultural phenomenon waiting to happen. Like everybody knows, like it's almost bigger. I mean, in some ways, it's bigger than like I think about the Avengers movies back when they were
Yeah.
coming out. Like Endgame and those movies, they were huge events. Like everybody was waiting for them. Everybody you knew was going to see them. People liked them to various degrees, but most everybody who was following the culture was going to see them. And I think Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be that for anybody who is even remotely interested in video games. Everybody is going to at least touch this game in some way in the months and years after it releases. And yeah, I think the trends that whatever this game ends up being, however different or similar it is to, Red Dead Redemption 2 or Grand Theft Auto 5,
Yeah.
I think it is going to have knock-on effects for game development for years to come afterwards.
So yeah, I mean, let's start there with just, the level of expectation. Is there a possibility of this game coming out and, like, let's just say meeting expectations? Because I mean, I think that's one thing, is like the expectations for it are just astronomical. Is there a world where I think people are underwhelmed? Is there a world where people, does it surpass expectations? Where do you ultimately come down on it, like in terms of a prediction?
I think I think that if I'm sitting here a year from now, the game releases in November as expected. I think what I expect my reaction to it to be is that it did not take as many big swings as I hoped it would.
Yeah.
I think this game is going to be pretty similar to Grand Theft Auto 5. I mean, again, I'm talking about the single player experience here. Um, I
Yeah.
think it's not going to go too far away from that, or what Red Dead Redemption 2 did. That's their bread and butter is what it is, and this game is too big to try something too different. So while I mean, I think I'm not necessarily saying they're going to rehash the same plot points or level structure or anything like that, or that it won't have some cool innovations and that sort of thing. But generally, I think at a big picture, everybody, I mean, we know what this game is going to be. I don't think it's going to come out of left field in any significant way.
Yeah, I think really for me the biggest question is, regarding whether or not it meets or exceeds or is able to live up to expectations, is just how effective it is at satirizing what's happening right now in America. I think, they have a really good and unique opportunity in front of them, having the story set in Vice City, having it set in Florida, presumably during modern America. Like, I think that sort of presents itself in a way that they can really ratchet up the ridiculousness in a way that, I think that's the thing that they've always been so great at Rockstar, is just being able to use the sort of over the top nature of some of these characters to shine a light on things that are actually happening in America, and, like, our big major cornerstones of American culture. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they tackle that in this game, and I think that's ultimately going to be what sets it apart. I think I fall in the same camp as you, where, like, there are just too many stakeholders, like both literally and figuratively, involved for this to be anything that is surprising. I think you're going to get exactly what it is, like a crime, a love, Bonnie and Clyde love story. So yeah, whether or not it takes any sort of big swings with its themes and messages beyond that, I think will be like what ultimately solidifies it as a success in my book.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a franchise that is very used to being controversial. I mean,
Yeah.
Think about all the different controversies about Grand Theft Auto 3 and 4, over the years, that really made not even like just video game news, but like the hot coffee mod or whatever that was
Right.
like written about, and people that didn't play video games knew what this was. This is a franchise that is familiar with that. So I think if anything less than that, if it shies away from tackling some of the, political aspects of the current moment or anything like that, if we don't get any of that, I think that would be a disappointment. I do think we'll get some. I don't know that we'll get something like extremely biting, but
Yeah.
I think it'll be there to some degree.
I do think the narrative overall will be stronger. I do think, like, there's something, more inherently more compelling about these two characters. Seems like they have a little bit more to lose, where, like, the characters in 5, while they were all likable in their own ways, they also kind of had their irritations and things that sort of made me not like them, for sure. So I think the story will be inherently better, but yeah, I think it's got to have something to say in order for me to, like, really feel like it's worth the juice. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mention like that this game is no stranger to controversy. And it's so weird to think about like how in 2025, like this is consistently, GTA 5 at least is consistently in like the top 5 most played games of the month, if not the year, certainly. So yeah, I mean, I think, we talked about like sort of the impact, that it's going to have on game development sort of at a top level. But I'm also really interested in, what this does to sort of the hierarchy that's sort of solidified at the top of like the like recurring player counts, where it's always Fortnite, it's always GTA, it's always Minecraft. Like, what does GTA 6 release do to shake up that sort of hierarchy that's formed over the last few years? And are we essentially just swapping out GTA 5 for GTA 6, or are there other downstream effects because of it?
I think it's a little more complicated than that, personally. And in fact, I think if there's one area where GTA 6 will be a bit of a disappointment, it's maybe disappointment is not the wrong word, is the wrong word here. But I think that there's a chance, a good chance, that this game does not meet the success of GTA 5 Online.
Yeah.
I think that, for one, I think there's going to be some people who just want to play more, like the GTA Online people who are online with GTA 5. I think may want to continue doing that. And I don't, and this is caveated by the fact that we don't exactly know, like, if Rockstar is going to try to roll these all into one or something like that.
Right. There's no even like confirmation that, because GTA 5 famously launched with just the story campaign and then online launched later. So there's no confirmation as to like what's the release schedule for GTA 6 either. So there's no guarantee that there will be GTA Online at launch either for 6.
Right. So I mean, with all that aside, if we just assume that it's there for a minute, I think, yeah, you're gonna split the fans here. I mean, I think, and again, unless there's some kind of clever way that they can tie all this together by like doing something super seamless between them, which I don't see it happening. Yeah, I think you're gonna have some people who move. I don't know that you're gonna get the same longevity from the GTA 6 online component that you do from GTA 5. I know that is something that is a large part of why this game has taken so long to make, and the delays and everything, because they know. I mean, they there's a lot of people involved in this. They know that possibility is there, that it could flop in that regard, and they need to succeed to justify the budget. So I'm sure these are things they're thinking about. But look, it's hard to make a successful online game like that. Sometimes it's like striking. You're just like hitting like a lottery. You don't really know what's going to resonate with everybody, especially not.
And there's no guarantee that. Yeah, there's no guarantee that when you release the sequel to it, that people are going to just automatically migrate over there. I mean, a great example is Overwatch 2, where, I mean, by and large, Overwatch 2 was essentially just Overwatch 1, and it struggled and stumbled out of the gate because of that sort of ambiguity around why the second one existed. And so, yeah, I can very much see that happening, of like, hey, like, I've spent literally hundreds of dollars in these GTA shark cards. Why am I going to, and once again, we're kind of speaking here without any sort of real idea or understanding of how the online is going to work. But knowing 2K and how these things work, like, you're presumably going to ask people to start over from zero. So yeah, you're not going to have like that full audience on day one. So yeah, I think it's going to take some time to build. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what that then does to sort of, I mean, I guess, if you're 2K, you're happy either way. I don't know. I mean, because it's all live service, and they're all spending money, and you're all spending time in the ecosystem. So it's kind of hard to level whether or not that's a success.
I mean, I think it's, if you retain all the players that you have and you spread it across the two games, that's one thing. But there's also the possibility of it hurting both games by spreading them out, and then neither of them are as populous as online is now, and that detracts from it. I don't know. I could see a world where it ends up hurting 5 and 6. I don't know. It's really hard to say. But I mean, if you look at Red Dead Redemption 2, they tried to go big with Red Dead Online, and that didn't work out. So it's not like it's
A
an
given,
easy
yeah.
thing for them to just kind of whip up.
Yeah. Last GTA question before we move on to the end of our gaming preview for 2026. What do you think this thing's going to cost? Is it going to be $70? Is it going to be $80? Is it going to be $100? And granted, we don't know, like I said, we're talking without knowing like what all is going to be in the package on day one, but there are certainly rumblings that this could be one of those games that defies the sort of modern pricing model. So what do you think, Matt?
I, this is tough. I think there is a decent chance that it does retail for like $100 or whatever. But
Yeah.
if I'm going to go on record with a prediction here, I'm going to say they don't risk it and they launch it at $80.
Yeah, I think that's probably the safest bet because that's the most they can get away with. My rolling theory is that it's going to be like a two SKU type situation, and maybe that's dumb thinking about it. Like maybe that's muddying the waters too much now. Like still, but it's going to be like, hey, if you just want the single player, it's $50, and if you just want online, it's $50, and then they'll cut you a deal and say like if you want everything, it'll be $80. But then like that's how they'll get their $100, where it's like, well, yeah, like if you only want the campaign, get the campaign, but if you want online later, it's an extra $50.
The problem with
So
that
I
is,
could see something like that.
yeah, I just don't think they're going to. They're not going to let anybody, because there's going to be a huge number of people in both camps that either only want single player
Yeah.
or only want multiplayer, and I can't see them. Yeah, I can't see them making you not pay for both. I think that would
Yeah.
ultimately end up hurting them. I think that's an interesting thought, but I I can't see it. I can't see it. I can't see how they would arrive at the conclusion where they would figure out that that makes financial sense.
Well, that's a good segue into our themes or sort of like predictions, like segment of this, where we just want to go through and like talk about like what do we think are going to be the biggest sort of themes and stories and headlines that emerge in 2026. I'll go first and say the obvious one, and that pricing is just going to be an ongoing issue. Obviously we had the like the tariffs that got announced and unannounced, and all the crazy things that were going on with that last year actually play a part in console prices being raised. And so now we're seeing RAM effects due to demand for AI products turn into potential price increases, definitely in the PC market. So that's gonna impact things like the Steam machines, which I mentioned earlier. So yeah, Matthew, what are I'll pass it over to you. What's something that you think is going to be like sort of a major trend, or if you want to talk about pricing in games, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and use this to make my bold prediction for the year. I Due to some of the reasons that you mentioned and some other factors, I think that the Steam machine is going to be a failure. I think that the pricing is going to be too high for it to make sense for a lot of people who are considering buying it. I think, not to say that nobody's going to purchase this thing, but it's not going to hit the status of the Steam machine, because I mean the Steam machine it sold, I can't remember, it's sold a couple million.
You're talking about the Steam Deck.
The Steam Deck, yeah, sorry. The Steam Deck has sold a few million, maybe 5, 3, something like that. But it significantly shifted the market in that it showed what a good handheld could be and what it could do, and it was tightly integrated with games. Like the Steam Deck compatibility, being so easy to display and all that, I think was actually, I mean, that was a big game changer. I don't think that, but that was also because it was releasing at a price point that was below a lot of what the premium Windows handhelds are. or or where we're being
Yeah.
priced at. And the Steam Machine, because Valve has said that they're not going to sell this thing at a loss or anything like this. This has to be a profitable product for each each unit that they sell. Due to the RAM prices and just the general cost of putting one
The
of these
form
things
factor,
out.
it's a custom form factor. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is probably not going to meet their sales expectations that they would have forecast, and yeah, I don't think it's going to see the same impact that the Steam Deck did.
What do you think like, not to put you on the spot again, but what do you think, pricing wise, they're going to come out and try and price this thing at?
We've talked about this a little bit offline. I think I probably would say 800.
Yeah.
I could even see it being higher now with all the RAM
What's a
stuff.
PS5 Pro go for these days? Are those 800?
I don't think I think there's 700. Let me just double check.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a quick PS5 Pro check here.
750.
Yeah, I'm seeing 750. Yeah, so I mean, that's tough, man. I think if you're I'm not someone who's advocating for a PS5 Pro either, because I think they're it's kind of overkill this generation. So yeah, I mean, I think if you're in that space of like competing with a console that admittedly is probably a little bit easier to set up and use. I know they've made great strides in accessibility and usability of PC and making it easier. And like, this is such a great next step forward. But yeah, I'm with you in that. I'm excited for the line of products minus the actual box, because I already have my own PC. So I feel like that's going to be a hurdle for them to get over in terms of introducing new people to the ecosystem. So yeah, I'm with you that I think PC RAM prices in general are just going to I think it's just going to make console sales kind of just a wash this year. And even I would say, like, you're going to see some things like with cloud gaming too. Like, you're already seeing Nvidia start to clamp down on the GeForce Now streaming, start to introduce some limits there. So I think you're going to start to see some of these like services and platforms start to deteriorate in terms of the value that they're offering.
Fortunately, yeah. I mean, we saw that last year with the Xbox Series X getting, I think, 2 price increases during the year just to keep up with the cost of manufacturing it and selling it, because Microsoft also was not willing to take those things at a loss. So I don't know that we'll see additional console price increases this year for existing consoles, but I don't think I do think that we may see more like a surge in console sales, specifically PS5 sales related to Grand Theft Auto 6.
Yeah.
But I don't know beyond that. I think this is probably, and we're getting towards the end of the console life cycles too, which normally comes with the price decreases when you sustain that. Try to squeeze a couple more sales out of them, but it's moved in the opposite direction, and I think the console sales will probably stagnate aside from Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, and it's a strange year too when you look at the first party lineups for everybody, where like Sony seems to have, PlayStation's got a traditionally PlayStation year where you've got, Saros and I think they've got a publishing deal for Phantom Blade Zero, but then they've also got Wolverine in the fall as well. So like, pretty strong first party lineup for Sony. Xbox has got Fable, Gears of War, Forza. It's actually a pretty traditionally strong Xbox year this year. But then Nintendo doesn't really have, like, Nintendo's my like, what are you doing? Because the Switch 2 launched last year, and I would say you had 3-4 like strong, if not like revolutionary titles in Donkey Kong and Metroid and Mario Kart World. I'm forgetting one as a fourth one, but anyway, but like there's not that killer app yet is what I'm trying to say. And I feel like this is the year where, there were some reports that over the Christmas break that despite getting off to a strong sales start, that the Switch 2 sort of had a stumble in during the holiday period, wasn't quite as strong as some previous holidays for like the Switch 1 console. So really I'm looking at in a year that, like we've kind of already mentioned, like is going to be dominated by Grand Theft Auto 6. I think that's kind of a de facto, like going to be the de facto system seller for Sony. But like, yeah, what is Nintendo doing? And do those exclusives for Xbox hit in a year that's going to be dominated by GTA 6? So all things that not necessarily a question, but things that I'm thinking about this year going into 2026. As we get into like the deluge of game releases.
I agree. I think, both Xbox and Game Pass specifically, as well as Nintendo, are going to be heavily reliant on the third-party game sales on their console to sell consoles. Like when I think about the Nintendo Switch lineup, you have a couple games that we saw, like Orbitals at the Game Awards, which I think is exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2 right now and looks great.
Yep.
Is it going to be a console seller? I don't know. I mean, it'll cause me to get some use out of my Switch because I expect that'll be really good. But you've got like Dusk Bloods, which is a FromSoft game that's exclusive to Nintendo Switch 2. So I mean, it seems like Nintendo realizes that they need to get some. I mean, the reality is that if your income is coming from selling consoles, you've got to have some reasons to buy a console versus just playing the game somewhere else. So. I mean, and I also think, look, and this is Nintendo. We're gonna get some kind of unexpected cool game this year that we don't even know about yet. They're really good at keeping things under wraps. They'll drop something.
There are, like an ungodly amount of gaming anniversaries this year between Donkey Kong and Samus, and it's everyone's got like a 40th or a 35th or a 30th. I have no doubt that game won't materialize by the end of the year. But on the outside looking in, it is interesting to see like there's nothing like if I didn't know any better, I would be like, why am I holding on to my Nintendo Switch 2? Like, what am I playing on this thing? It seems like, at least right now, it's a lot of, Switch 1 ports and just sort of like the mid-tier Nintendo stuff. So yeah, I'm interested to see what everyone does. I think everyone is sort of waiting for GTA 6 to sort of come out and have its moment. And then, we'll see where the cards fall from there. But we're going to go ahead and take a break here now that we've sort of discussed our gaming thoughts heading into 2026. And then when we come back from our break, we're going to talk about two movies, The Running Man and Wake Up Dead Man. Stay right there. And we're back, and we're going to stop talking about games and talk about movies, because we just had, like I mentioned at the top of the show, a big Game of the Year Top 10 Extravaganza episode, which you guys can go check out. We played a lot of video games for that, and a lot of video games leading up to that. So I don't know about you, Matthew, but I was kind of burnt out-ish. Haven't played a lot of video games. I know you've been busy moving. So yeah, we were both able to take the time to watch two movies, both from, I would say two well-renowned directors. The first of which is The Running Man. This is the remake of the 1987 Running Man, which is an adaptation of the Stephen King novel. And so yeah, this released late last year. Was it November of last year? I missed that.
November, yeah.
But yeah, it didn't do well at the box office. It had a box office of like 68.6 million is the number I got against a budget of 110 million. So it didn't really do well at the box office. Matthew, I'll just kick it over to you. What did you think about The Running Man, and sort of, I guess if you want to talk about like your history with like Edgar Wright films in general as well, and then just, yeah, what did you think about this remake of a remake?
Yeah, I think just to start with, I think your note about it being a box office bomb is interesting. Is an interesting point here, because Glenn Powell is one of the most marketable movie stars of the moment currently, and not a good sign when even someone like that at the top of their popularity can release a, a, a financially a financial failure of a movie. So yeah, not good on that.
Yeah, weird stuff with like the timing about this. Like, and like I argue that the marketing for it wasn't all that great. But yeah, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. So yeah, you asked about my history with Edgar Wright. Yeah, I mean, I grew up with the Shaun of the Dead. What is the name of the trilogy?
The Cornetto trilogy.
Yes, the Cornetto trilogy. Thank you. Those were kind of influential movies for me early on. And obviously Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, is a classic. So yeah, I would say that I'm a pretty big fan of Edgar Wright's earlier works. I think his later work, or I should say more recent work, has been a little hit or miss for me. I was less into Baby Driver than I think most people were. And he left Ant-Man over for, I think, creative differences, which, I liked Ant-Man, but, I think he's had, if I was going to sum it up, he's had trouble recapturing some of the like identity and the magic from his earliest works, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of where I fall on him overall.
And I think that's a good place to start with The Running Man, because I would classify myself as an Edgar Wright stan, where I it's hard for me to find another director that if I see their name, I'm like, boom, okay, bet, like I'm there. Like there's Wes Anderson. Like if it's a Wes Anderson animated movie, like I'm there. And Edgar Wright is certainly one of those names as well. All the movies that you mentioned, right? The Cornetto trilogy, the Scott Pilgrim adaptation. I very much enjoyed Baby Driver. Though, yeah, I think the cast was probably the better part of that movie, more so than like the writing and the script. And yeah, that brings us to The Running Man, which I think, if you look at on paper, is sort of like the perfect movie for me right now, where it is, Edgar Wright taking on sort of like corporate controlled, corporate owned media, and the sort of the negative effects of sort of our American media system and the way that we consume media. Obviously I've never read the original novel, but I would imagine that the novel is just sort of soaked in that sort of those themes. But yeah, seeing him sort of take that on, while I think the thing that really I enjoyed, like, spoilers, long story short, I enjoyed this movie. I think a lot of it came down to Glenn Powell's performance, and just the fact that Edgar Wright is so good at writing men who are good-natured and like kind-hearted, and are just doing their best to make it through these extraordinary circumstances that are often like, circumstances that are stacked against them in a way, right? And so I think this is sort of the most extreme example of that, maybe next to something like a Shaun of the Dead, where it's like, just like an everyday guy who's sort of thrust into these sort of extraordinary circumstances, and, he takes us on this, sort of like adrenaline filled ride. And so, yeah, I mean, I think overall, like it, he sort of, it sort of plays like an Edgar Wright's greatest hits, where like, I don't look back at any one moment where I'm like, oh my God, like this is, there were certainly some funny moments, and there was certainly some great action packed moments, but like overall it was like, yeah, this is just a solid, like, B grade action movie for me.
I agree. I think this if it wasn't a clear before you watch the movie how Edgar Wright picks this, it pretty quickly becomes, like you said, like you're like, oh, I get it. This is hitting all of the notes that Edgar Wright typically likes. He likes the everyman stories. He likes the kind of over the top nature of things, and this movie sticks pretty close to. I mean, in a way, you could argue that some of Edgar Wright's sensibilities are sort of like the modern version of the campy 80s style that the original Running Man was.
I think it's a good fit.
Yeah, so I agree that the fit is pretty good here. I think, I mean, I like this movie. It's a good time. Like, I don't think it's his strongest, but I don't think that, I think it's better than his last film, Last Night in Soho. And yeah, it's just, I mean, like, Glenn Powell is just an extremely watchable actor. He's popular for a reason. Like, you can
Yeah.
What you're going to get out of him. He's a professional, you can say. I think like early on in this movie, when things are just getting going, I think the jokes are landing, the tone is hitting. And yeah, I would say that the sort of first half of this movie, I was super on the same wavelength with.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like, I think my sort of one of my bigger detractors is that it is very heavy handed in its messaging and like the themes that it's trying to convey. I think part of that is intentional because like this is, an over the top world. For those of you who are unaware of what the Running Man, like the central plot of the Running Man is, this is a dystopian United States of America. It's set in the near future. I want to say in the modern version it's 2035, like something like it's pretty close into the future, where like there's essentially this giant corporate media conglomerate that owns, the television, all the TV stations. It owns the police. It owns, and so they've established all these different game shows that are designed to lift people out of poverty, but are almost always like violent and sort of like appeal to people's sort of baser natures. And the biggest one of these is the Running Man, where like someone has to survive for 30 days being chased by these hunters. And if they win, they get $1 billion, and they're, so there's a lot of, themes around, classism, people being held in poverty. I think a lot of that stuff, while it is heavy handed, like I think they execute on it really, really well, and they make you feel, I think going back to Glenn Powell's performance, like he's I think that's probably the best compliment that I can say to the story in this, is that like the performances help drive some of this stuff home, even though it is a little heavy handed.
Yeah, he milks it. He milks the script for what it's worth. I think this satire is about what you would expect. I don't think they're hitting anything particularly incisive. They're taking the low hanging fruit, but they're hitting all the notes correctly, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, it struck me a lot of, but that Black Mirror episode that was very much about like media and entertainment and like social media. It was one of the very first episodes of the first season, where like that it kind of struck me as that, but like you didn't have to think about it as much. Like they told you a lot of what they wanted you to take away from the movie. So yeah, I mean, I think ultimately like I got the message out of it, and I think there's a good message in there. I do think maybe it could have been told with a little bit more nuance. I think another understated element to this movie just overall is Josh Brolin's performance, and I think this is a little bit of a teaser for Wake Up Dead Man, but like he just plays a good antagonist. Yes. Man, like I could watch Josh Brolin just sit in a chair and talk shit to somebody else for 2 hours straight. He's just so good at it, and I think that is also another really strong, compelling part of this movie, is just the interplay, the back and forth between Glenn Powell's character and Josh Brolin's character.
Yeah, I would say that Josh Brolin is like incredibly underrated, but I think most people actually just do like him as a villain.
Yeah.
Even if he always sort of plays a similar role, he always nails it, and it's always like perfect. So yeah, I liked his performance here as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, and yeah, I mean, as an Edgar Wright stan, like my closing thought is like I would totally watch this movie again. It's it's one of those that like I don't think it's gonna be like my favorite Edgar Wright movie, or like I it gave me an appreciation for Glenn Powell that I didn't have before. And so it's definitely one of those that like I think when I think of him, I certainly will think of this movie. But yeah, we'll see if that changes in the near future.
A couple closing thoughts here. I think my negatives for this film. One is, why do you cast Lee Pace and put his face behind a mask for the entire film?
Yeah.
That didn't make sense. Like show the man's face. And the other thing, I just think that the ending, generally, like the final act of this film, kind of falls apart. I think. Yeah. From what I've read is it sticks pretty close to the original book, closer than the original film did, or the first adaptation, I should say. But I think that you get everything from when he picks up the woman in the car and like kind of like plays the fake bomb. And this is not really a spoiler. The fake bomb threat role all the way up to the end of the film, I think is just not really, borrowing a couple of the action sequences on the plane are cool, but
yeah,
I didn't. And
it's sort of negated without spoiling, right? Like that sort of subplot is sort of negated in a way that like made me feel like it could have been removed from the movie entirely.
Yes.
And I mean, I would even tack on a little bit where like I was let down by Michael Cera's character in a big way, where like he gets introduced as like this sort of big help, and and like within 10 minutes, he's completely like things have gone off the rails in a way that like don't even feel consistent with his character, given what is, what they're told. And like, then there's like sort of a MacGuffin that he gets out of that ultimately leads nowhere. And like, yeah, there's a lot of like wheel spinning that goes nowhere in this. And I think the last act is sort of like the culmination of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Michael Cera sequence was appropriately chaotic. I do agree that they had to find a way to make it relevant in order to continue the plot, which did feel a little bit forced. But I think that sequence itself, it was pretty strong.
It was awesome. Yeah. The action was great. The acting was great. Michael Cera is a treasure. Love him in an Edgar Wright movie. I'm glad he got to be in this.
Yeah. But so, yeah, I think overall there's a lot to recommend in this film. I mean, there's also like some scenes we haven't really talked about, like cool like sci-fi dystopia scenes here. Like there's some stuff that reminds me of like Minority Report, which is like one of the coolest renditions of a dystopia in films, in my opinion. So yeah, there's nothing that's like earth-shattering, like in terms of like newness and representation, but it's all very cool and appropriately sci-fi
and grounded in a way that feels believable, even given like how over the top like a lot of it is presented.
Yes.
I did feel like I think a lot of my like some of the more visceral scenes like had a lot of impact just because of like how realistic everything felt in the world.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So I mean, yeah. Overall, I'm I'm talking myself as we're talking about this. My opinion of this movie is rising as we're talking about all the good things in it. But yeah, I think this is a solid film.
Edgar Wright can do no wrong. Someone who I believe can do wrong, but maybe other people would disagree with me on that, is Rian Johnson, who's been on a little bit of a tear lately, releasing the hit Knives Out trilogy. At this point, we've got Knives Out, Glass Onion, and now Wake Up Dead Man. So this is the latest on Netflix, of course. It stars Daniel Craig returning with an all-new ensemble cast in a new whodunit. This was my first Knives Out movie, so I've got some thoughts. And I was someone who famously did not enjoy the Star Wars: The Last Jedi, and I think overall, like I enjoy Rian Johnson's movies and I like his filmmaking style, but ultimately I don't come down on him. Like I would much rather watch an Edgar Wright movie than a Rian Johnson movie. But this one captured me in a way that like I really appreciate it. It has some really good moments in it. Matthew, why don't you walk me through sort of your history? I would imagine you have a little bit more of a background with this. So why don't you walk me through your history with Rian Johnson, the Knives Out movies, and take me through how you felt about Wake Up Dead Man.
So I've watched all of the Knives Out movies. I'm pretty big into these. I like these a lot. They've kind of run parallel to the Poirot films that Kenneth Branagh has been doing, both starring like both sort of an anthology movie series where you have the main detective, but with a rotating cast of characters for each film. I think Rian Johnson, I get why, like, and I know you said you're not really a huge fan of Last Jedi. He's got a interesting house style. There's a lot of subtlety, I think, in what he goes for. And I think arguably Wake Up Dead Man is his least subtle film that he's done.
Yes.
And I think that actually benefits it. I think that
interesting.
His some of the messaging and some of the themes that he goes for here. We talk about Running Man being a satire, but this has some its own kind of cultural commentary in some areas.
Oh, I love the fact that we watched these and are sort of like talking about them together, because I think they go really, hand in hand with one another, and sort of the messages that they're trying to talk about, and like, certainly the times and the kinds of people that they're talking about, the times that we're living in, that is. But yeah, I not to cut you off entirely, but I just want to set the scene here for, the movie and those who may not be familiar with the plot and the premise. So yeah, like obviously it's a murder mystery, but like just to kind of set the stage for this one, it all takes place inside of a like, I guess a small like church town, a small hamlet, if you will. The murder victim, if you will, is the pastor, the leader of this church, who has sort of this negative reputation, has sort of fostered a cult-like following. Stop me if you've heard all of this before. So yeah, I feel like the stage is sufficiently set at this point to say that there is definitely some social and political commentary going on in this one as well that I caught. It's definitely not subtle.
No, it is not subtle. And I think it's hard to talk more about this film without talking about I would actually call them co-leads of this film. Daniel Craig, who plays the detective here of Benoit Blanc, a sort of gruff kind of curmudgeon. I don't know, curmudgeon is the right word. But he strikes me as like a Mark Twain character, or a character that Mark Twain would write. Yes, but he ironically, for being played by Daniel Craig, is like quintessentially American. Like he upholds
Southern American.
Yeah, Southern American values. But is also sort of progressive in that he doesn't believe in God and is very sort of witty, so
logical, facts-based. Like he struck me a lot as someone who, this was my first, viewing of any of these movies. He struck me a lot as like they were doing the same sort of bits that like Sherlock Holmes does, and any iteration of Sherlock Holmes that you want to pick, where like he's walking you through the crime in such an elaborate way. But Rian Johnson, this is, I appreciate Rian Johnson's presentation of it here, because they set it in what is essentially a really grounded and believable world. So like, in a show like Sherlock, where he's going through all the details of the crime, like everyone's sitting there nodding along like, yeah, okay, we got it. Whereas like in these movies, presumably all of them, Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the people were responding to Benoit doing the same thing with like, okay, but like who, like how did the person die? Like it's all very realistic, and like the conversations I think are the best part. That the dialogue is the best part of these movies for me.
Totally. The characters, I mean, they have a huge ensemble cast. Like Wake Up Dead Man has Glenn Close, Josh Brolin, Mila Kunis, Jeremy Renner. Who am I forgetting?
Jeffrey Wright in a minor role too. Like shout out to Jeffrey Wright.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, it's also like, you have a bunch of big name actors, because in a lot of films, like you can tell who's going to be a notable character by the fact that they're famous or something like that. But this sort of turns that on its head, in that you don't know who did it, because you can't just tell because someone's famous. Like they have actual like bit roles here, essentially for actors that you know them by name, which is always cool to see. Like someone play a character that's totally against type. Like Jeremy Renner here does not play a tough guy. He plays a role that's like against what you would usually see him play. So I think that's a big part of these films. They all kind of have that sort of through line in them.
So yeah, I mean, let's get into the details a little bit here. You sort of mentioned the dual protagonists here, which I don't think you actually got into like the details of it. But like, I think the main character here, Judd, I think is his first name.
Yes. Judd Duplessis or something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Where he essentially gets assigned out to this hamlet working under, Josh Brolin's character, who, once again in this movie plays a wonderful ass, and, treats him to confessions about the many ways in which he masturbates. Like I think he sort of, Judd, going back to Judd, I think he sort of captures the same thing that, Edgar Wright captures in all of his movies, but specifically in Running Man, where it's like, I'm just a guy who has this really strong moral conviction, and I just want to do the right thing. But the circumstance and the situation that I find myself in, it makes it like really impossible, really hard, and really difficult to adhere to those. And like, there's something really compelling about that and the way that it's presented here.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Going back to Josh O'Connor's performance here as the second lead, he kind of steals the spotlight from Daniel Craig, which I think is incredibly notable. I have not actually seen him in anything before. I don't think. I know he's been getting a lot of attention lately from some of the other films that he's been in, like Challengers with Zendaya, but okay. I mean, he's fantastic here. Like he fully commits to this role. I saw somebody post on Blue Sky, I think, that was like, the rest of the cast is like, oh, I'm here for a fun whodunit, and then Josh O'Connor's like, I'm gonna heal generations of Catholic trauma with my performance. And that's it's so true, because he like this is not making fun of like religion or anything in that way. You have Benoit Blanc here, who doesn't believe in this, but it's all played completely straight. And Josh O'Connor is somebody who has converted to the faith, I guess, like a little bit later in life, and but has a like a genuine calling here. And the way that they find a way to both have fun with the whodunit aspect of this, and kind of poke fun at some of the things that are happening here in this parish, but also allow space for this performance to really shine through and to be like completely memorable. Honestly, like that's probably going to be my biggest takeaway from this, is just how good his performance was as the lead role.
There's just a real sincerity,
exactly,
with how the moments, I mean, like all of the moments pertaining to religion, from the moment where he thinks that he's being framed, and like having this really quiet private moment, and Benoit makes his appearance, and like I think all of it is just so wonderfully acted. And yeah, I mean, like the scene to me was, it really was the standout, was him talking to Louise on the phone, and like, the mad rush to get all the information, and like, oh my God, we're almost at the end of this mystery. And for him to sit there and take presumably hours, they infer that he's on the phone with her for hours to talk to her about her dying mom. And, really just, it really drives that point home of like, why are you doing the things that you want to be doing? Like, why are you doing them? And like, what's your real motivation in life? And I think this movie tackles a lot of those feelings that we sort of all feel, both religious and not, in ways that I think are both relatable and just powerful, and just in ways that I hadn't really thought of them being presented. So I know Rian Johnson sort of gets the bad rep as being subversive, and I think a lot of, or like being too subversive. And I think some of my complaints with this movie do come down to, once again, the final act, where it kind of felt like they were trying to layer on all these different gotcha moments, and it kind of just felt like, okay, like, all of these things are distractions. What's the real sort of like hook here? What's the real answer?
Yeah. There was like one extra
but I think,
Uno reverse card play that didn't really need to happen in that sort of final sequence there. I agree.
Yeah, and I think the way that it was presented, I think it's a way that I think it's an element of Rian Johnson's filmmaking that sort of sticks out to me, where it is very like, he likes portraying the thing that didn't happen in a way that makes it appear as though it did happen. And, I get that that's part of his style, but like, there were many times where I was like, okay, wait, what just happened? Oh, wait, that didn't happen. And so like having to keep track of all of that is kind of a pain.
Yeah, I think part of that is this being the third film. I think there's a bit of like one-upsmanship that has to happen against the previous films, even though they're all unrelated. They can't all unfold the exact same way, so they have to. Right. He has to try to find a way to add extra wrinkles in there. But I do agree that it was maybe a one too many type situation here at the end.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it, like for the commentary just on religion, the things that people use religion for, the things that people do in the name of religion, the ways that people twist religion and use religion to advance their goals and agenda, like all of that stuff I think was handled really, really well as somebody who grew up in religion and has sort of, strayed from it, to and from it over the years. There's a lot of, my own internal struggles I see sort of playing out here that I really appreciated, like the commitment to authentically and sincerely doing it. So, I enjoyed it. And like the murder mystery stuff was all really good too. Like the twists were all believable. I think that's one thing you sort of run the risk with these sort of movies, is like, how far is taking it too far in terms of the one-upsmanship. And I thought all of the twists, save for a couple of them, I thought the way they layered them on was really believable and nice.
Yeah, I think all the things you said about how it is so sincere in its portrayal of these like complicated themes, while also having levity, in terms of some of its cast and, jokes from Benoit himself and all that. Yeah. I think.
And really biting criticism.
Yes. Yeah. It totally, it's very multifaceted. This is not like preaching, no pun intended. It's not preaching to you about anything. Mm-hmm. It is actually just kind of presenting things in a way that you feel like you would encounter between actual people with differing opinions, yeah. And it's all presented very respectfully. And I think that's not only is that speak to the quality of the acting, but it also, that's good directing too. Rian Johnson directs this film in a way that allows for all that to happen.
Yeah, no, yeah. And I think, there is definitely, difference between a like sort of high octane action movie versus, something that is more contemplative and slower paced. And I think Rian Johnson, I think his storytelling is just a little bit more suited to something like this, where like I could easily see, myself watching 4 or 5 more of these, especially, if they're as thematically strong and like have these, similar connections. I think as long as he has the inspiration for them, I don't have any doubt that he'll be able to execute on them in a way that he's done here as well.
100%. Yeah. Despite this being the third in the series, I think this was probably my favorite one so far. And yeah, I keep them coming. I'll keep watching these things.
Yeah, no, I mean, shout out to Daniel Craig. I think he does a great Southern accent. I mean, I think overall the cast is really, really strong here. We shouted out Josh Brolin already. Mila Kunis does a great job. It was great to see her in anything.
Anything,
Like, I feel
yeah,
like I hadn't seen her in anything in a while. And yeah, I mean, overall, just a great, strong cast, a great, strong whodunit. And yeah, I mean, if you want to sort of exercise some religious trauma, I don't know if exercise is the right word to use there. But if you want to, sort of work through some past religious trauma, I think that's a great movie to start with.
for sure.
All right, y'all. Well, that's going to do it for our show today. We are glad that you joined us to talk both video games and movies. We hope that you guys have a wonderful night. Before we go, we want to encourage you guys to go to timekillerspod.com. Find us on whatever social platform you use. Follow us, subscribe, like us, do all the things. You can ask us anything. Go to timekillerspod.com/AMA. Please be part of the show. If you have any sort of questions, comments, observations, the state of video games, movies, entertainment, whatever, we want to hear your thoughts and we want to make you guys part of the show. So with that being said, we're going to let you guys go. Matthew, anything to say to the kind folks before we log off?
Looking forward to another full year of entertainment and killing time with everybody.
Thanks for killing time with us, y'all. Keep it baller. Have a good night.